Hello, welcome to another installment of Practical Farms, where we take a look at different farms and make them more practical, depending on where we are in each phase of the game, whether it is early game, mid game, or late game, so where they are more cost effective to suit our needs. Today we're going to be taking a look at pumpkin and melon farms. These are very easy and fun farms to make and provide a great resource for trading with farmer villagers. Before I show you how to build one of these farms, let's take a look at a couple of the mechanics behind how they work. Now, the basic mechanics of how pumpkins and melons grow is that once you have planted a pumpkin or a melon into a tilled piece of soil, it will grow in one of the four cardinal directions when a mature pumpkin or melon grows. They will not grow diagonally, they only grow to the left, to the right, or forward or backwards. Another important mechanic is that they will grow twice as fast if the soil is hydrated. So it's highly recommended, although not technically necessary, to have a water source within 4 blocks of your pumpkin and melon plant. Now, when it comes to harvesting pumpkins, either manually or automatically, the drop rate is the same. You always get the pumpkin. However, with melons, it's a little different. When you harvest a melon, you get melon slices. And the drop rate for harvesting a melon is 3 to 7 slices per melon. That is, unless you use a Silk Touch axe. Now, with Silk Touch axe, you will get the whole melon. Now, why would this be important? As you can see when we take a look in our crafting table, if you were to take our melon slices, it takes a full 9 slices to make one whole melon when you craft it in your crafting table. However, when you collect them, whether manually or automatically with a piston, you only get 3 to 7 of the melon slices. So it is anywhere from 2 to 3 times more efficient to use a Silk Touch tool to collect your melons than to use automatic methods and then craft them into whole melons when you trade with your villagers. However, passively having them grow and collected for you in the long run is more effective, even though it may only give you half as many melons in the same amount of space. And besides, honestly, it's a lot more fun to build farms than it is to go around and collecting melons. But that being said, early game manually planting and harvesting melons is the way to go. Eventually we'll get to a point where you'll want to have them done automatically, and then use the harvest to trade with your farmer villagers for many, many emeralds. So let's take a look at the 2 different options we have for automatic pumpkin and melon farms. Now, there's 2 different basic ways you can build an automatic pumpkin and melon farm. The first one of these is to go out in a horizontal pattern. Because of the fact that the growth pattern of pumpkins and melons is to grow to one of the 4 different sides of the plant, this is the most efficient method for harvesting pumpkins and melons automatically. Basically, the way it works is you place a piston over each of the different spots that are available for the pumpkins or melons to grow, and then we come and place an observer facing down, looking at the plant. The reason for this is that when the pumpkin or melon plant matures and grows a full pumpkin or melon to one of the 4 spaces, the stem of the plant bends, and the observer can see this. And so when it is fully grown and it decides that it's time to grow a pumpkin or a melon, it will put an output signal out the back. We then will have it powering this block, which then gives a signal passively to each of the different redstone dust, which then activates our pistons. Now, when the piston activates, the pumpkin or melon will be in one of these 4 spots, and the piston will disconnect it from the plant and have it drop as an item to be collected by a rail car system underneath this farm. A second method of building an automatic melon and pumpkin farm is to place the observer next to the plant instead of above it, and then have a piston on either side. If we take a look around the back, the same mechanic happens, that when the observer notices the plant growing, it activates out the back into this block, which passively activates the redstone dust on either side, which turns on our pistons and knocks loose the pumpkin or melon depending on whether it grew to the left or to the right. The pumpkin is then pushed forward out to the front, and typically is collected using a water stream, although you could use hoppers if you wanted to. It's also recommended that you would then place a wall on this side to prevent any pumpkins or melons from being ejected too far from the water stream. Now, because this one only has 2 places that the pumpkin or melon can grow, it will produce pumpkins and melons only half as fast as this method here. But the advantage to this is that while you could easily tile this one on a diagonal, alternating between pumpkins and melons, this one can be not only tileable side by side, it's also stackable vertically. And you could go practically as high as you want, even up to the build limit if you so desired. While this one's a little harder to do that. So in the same footprint, you can put many, many more pumpkins and melon plants to be harvested. So while it is a little bit less efficient per plant, this one can fit more pumpkins and melons in the same footprint. So which one's better? It all depends. If you want maximum efficiency, well then, this is the one to go with. And if you don't mind using hopper, minecarts, and rails underneath your farm, then here's how you go. However, if you want to have an extremely large-scale industrial complex of pumpkins and melons, this is the one to go with. Also, if you have an automatic storage system that uses water streams, this one is much easier to integrate into that system. You could always use an auto dropper system with the other farm, but this one just fits in naturally. Really, it's a matter of preference. Do you want maximum efficiency, or do you want scalability? Both of them have their advantages, and that's up to you to decide what works best in your world. So let's take a quick look at how to build each one of these, and I'll also include some of the rates that you can expect from these farms. We'll begin with this farm here. Let's take a look at how to make it. Alright, so here is a working example of that first farm. I believe it was popularized by Il Mango, and it has really great rates. It is a mixture of both pumpkins and melons, and the rates that I found for my testing comes out to about 419 watermelon slices per hour. Now in this farm I have 16 melon plants, so that comes out to about 26.2 melon slices per hour per plant. For the pumpkins, I came out with 88 pumpkins per hour, and that's with 24 pumpkin plants, so that is 3.7 pumpkins per hour per plant. Now when I did testing for this farm, I didn't just do it for 10 or 15 minutes and then multiply it out to see what it would be for an hour. I had it run for 5 hours. And these are fairly consistent rates for every hour within those 5 hours. It came out a little higher than I was expecting for the melons, but that's just because of the random nature of how many melon slices you get per drop. But with that in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at how to build this farm. Now the easiest way to start this out is to start with our rails and collection system. So what we're going to do is create a 9 by 10 grid with the rail cars snaking back and forth in that pattern over there. Go 9 in this direction, turn the corner, come back, and then on this side we go all the way to the end 10. So that's 2, and that's 10. And then it comes around the corner here and then creates that pattern. So I'll go ahead and fill that in, and then I'll come back in and add some powered rails as well. Now how often you put in powered rails is up to you. I like to put them at about the same spacing each time, usually right before a turn. And since I'm going to be having the cart come this direction, I think I'll put my powered rails right here, and then I'll put one over here, just so it has enough boost to get around the corners. This is probably overkill on the number of powered rails, but it also guarantees that it will never slow down or stop. And you can use whatever method you'd like of powering these rails. You can either use the redstone block like I'm doing, or you can come in and use redstone torches underneath, or you can use levers, whichever way you'd like to go. It's all a matter of personal preference. Now that this is all in place, we need to put our collection system. And because the fact that it's going to be collecting anywhere from 3 to 7 melon slices at a time in addition to pumpkins, we're going to want to put in at least 4 hoppers in order to be able to keep up with the drop rate of our farm. So take out these 4 rails and dig down 1 right here, and then dig out 2 right here. And what we're going to do is place a chest for our collection right here, and then have the hoppers feed into that chest, with these side hoppers feeding into the other 2 hoppers. After crouch placing those, we need to crouch place our rails on top of these to connect the track back to operating form. So let's make sure that this rail system is going to work. So all you have to do is place your minecart with hopper, give it a little push, and it should make it all the way around. And there you go. You see that it works really effectively. The next step is we need to come in and place in our observers and pistons. It's going to be a little easier to put them in first, so we'll do that right now. And I'm going to take this minecart out of the way so it doesn't interfere with us and distract us from what we're doing. Now that we're ready to put in our dirt, the easiest way to start placing it is to come to this corner here, and if you just place it right on top of the rail, it'll put it automatically at the right height. Now the only thing is we don't want to put all the dirt in first, because it makes it a little harder to place our observers and pistons. So what we need to do is come up 2 blocks more, and we're going to use a layer of temporary blocks to create our piston and observer system. I like to start with the pistons because it's easy to place them off of this temporary block from down below, and then just come in and create a grid pattern alternating back and forth between dirt and pistons until you have a total of 9 all the way across, and then just keep alternating back and forth all the way across until you have a grid of 9 by 9. And there we have it, 9 by 9. Then we come up on top, and we're going to replace each one of these temporary blocks with our observers facing downward. Now when you get to the center block, you will not put an observer there. As we mentioned before, our farm needs to be hydrated. The center block of our farm is going to have a water source and not a plant. So we are not going to place an observer here since there won't be anything for it to observe. Now that we have all of our pistons and observers in place, we're ready to go ahead and place our farmland. So all you have to do is come back down here and just fill in all 81 squares with the dirt. But to make life easier on us, as we place each row, we'll come back and till it and place our seeds. Otherwise it gets a little harder to reach. And the way to do it is basically wherever there's an observer, you till it and place a seed. Now whichever one you want to have the most of, if it's melons or if it's pumpkins, place it in the corner first, because this will end up with 24 of this plant. And remember, we're alternating them diagonally so that it optimizes the growth of our farm. This means the first row will be entirely pumpkins, the second row melons, and then alternating back and forth until we fill in the entire farm. Now while we're at it, we might as well go ahead and bone meal these to save time so that we don't have to wait for them to grow. And then we go in and place the next row. And on this row, we're going to be planting melons. All of our pumpkins and melon plants are planted. You can see they've already started growing. but that's okay as they're not going to get in our way. We can take care of them in just a couple minutes. Our next step is to come in and place a water source in the middle. You can see I forgot to do it when I was planting the dirt. If you were paying attention, you could do it beforehand and not have to do what I'm doing here. But dig a hole out of the dirt, place a slab on the bottom half, and then waterlog that slab. This will now hydrate every single one of the plants in our farm. Then we need to add a light source. You can use whatever one you prefer. I'm using a shroom light, but you can use just about any block you want. Then just fill in that hole and you're good to go. As I said, I highly recommend that you hydrate your farm because it gives you nearly the double amount of melons and pumpkins than if you didn't. The next step is to go and put a solid block on the top of every single one of the observers. You can use any solid block you like. I'm just using smooth stone because it makes it easier to see the edges of the block for this tutorial. After that, you come through and in every spot that there is a piston, you place redstone dust. The next thing we want to do is put a nice little wall around it just to keep things contained when the pistons activate. As you can see, they can cause a little bit of chaos in there. So we want to make sure that every single pumpkin and melon that is dropped will stay within the contents of the farm. Now, you can use any block you like for this, but I like to use a solid block that looks nice to put a border around the edge, but then come on top of it with glass so I can see into the farm. This isn't required, it's just kind of nice to see what's going on inside your builds. Now that everything is in place and ready to go, all we have to do is put our minecart on the track, give it a little push, and it will go around and start collecting all of our drops. As you can see, there's already a few pumpkins and melon slices ready to be picked up. And there we go. We already have 4 coming in, and I'm sure there's many more to come. There you have it. This one's pretty easy to build, and it's a lot of fun to build as well. But to be honest, the only way to expand this one is to go out in the cardinal directions. You can't expand vertically very easily. And that's why I like using the other one sometimes, depending on the circumstances. And perhaps you might too. So let me go ahead and show you how to build a vertical pumpkin and melon farm. Alright, we're over here at one of the 4 different pumpkin and melon farms that I built in order to test all the rates for these farms. I did some with water, without water. I did pumpkins by themselves, melon by themselves, and did a full rate test on all of them. But the only results I'm going to share with you today are going to be the ones for the hydrated farms. As I said, the ones without the water are significantly less efficient, anywhere from 40 to 50% less production over the hydrated crops. I highly recommend that you use water sources to improve the rates of this farm. Now, after 8 hours of testing, we ended up with 1,342 pumpkins in 8 hours, which is 168 pumpkins per hour. And I planted 112 pumpkins and melons each, resulting in 1.5 pumpkins per hour for each pumpkin plant. For melons, we had 6,736 melon slices in 8 hours, which is 842 melon slices per hour, or 7.5 slices per hour for each melon plant. As you can tell, these are much lower rates, actively half the number of pumpkins and melons per plant of what the other farm is producing, because it has half as many spaces for the melons and pumpkins to spawn. Therefore, the rates would be about half. However, as I said, this one is fully scalable upwards as well as tileable in the cardinal directions. So if you're willing to plant more plants, this one will end up being more productive. Maybe not as efficient, but certainly more productive. So let me show you how to build this one. It's also very easy and kind of fun to build as well. Alright, the first step is to come and build out a 5 by 17 platform. You can use any solid block you want. I like using smooth stone for tutorials just because they're easier to see each block. Once you've done this, we want to come in and replace this row with dirt blocks. And then also remove this row, as it will be where our water stream is used to collect all of our pumpkins and melons. The next step is to come in and till the soil and plant our seeds. Now you can use any combination of pumpkins and melons, that's up to you. I personally like doing one layer of pumpkins and one layer of melons, but that's just because I like having them all in one farm. But you can do it in any way that you like, and it will work just fine. The next step is to come in behind and put in a couple water sources. Now you need to make sure that each plant is within 4 of a water source. So what I like to do is I like to come in to the third plant, remove that block, and place some water. That puts it well within range of all of the different plants. And then come in from the other side and do the same thing. Next step is to come in and put in all of our pistons. Place one in front of each of the open spaces. And then we come around the back and place a piece of redstone dust behind each piston. Then come in and put an observer facing into each one of the plants. And then place a solid block behind each one of the observers. And then I like to put a wall on the side just to help contain all the pumpkins and melons when they grow. The next step is then to come in and put in our water stream. There's a couple different ways you can do it. You can either have one water stream that goes all the way across and comes out this side, or you can put a water stream on either side and have it meet here in the middle, and where they meet you can replace that with our collection system. The way to do it is very simple. You just remove this block and then dig one down into here and place your chest. Then come onto this side, dig one down, and crouch place your hopper into that chest. Then come back and put a window here. Now you can use any block you like, but I like to put transparent blocks just because it makes it easier to see what's going on inside my farm, and I like seeing what's going on inside the farm. Next, to help speed things along, is to come in and bone meal each of the plants. The only thing left to do then is to come in and add light sources. Now depending on how many layers you do, you can either use any light source you want. However, if you're going to put multiple stacks, I recommend coming in with torches, because while they may not be that pretty, they are considered transparent blocks and do not interfere with the pumpkins and melons falling into the water stream. Now when you get to the middle, you're going to want to add some additional torches going up, but because we have the water stream right here, we can't place one at this level, but it will give enough light for this plant right below it. Now adding additional layers is super easy. All you have to do is just come and place a layer of blocks across your pistons and observers, and then across the back of your redstone dust, and then do the same thing with the dirt. And then repeat the build of the first layer for each additional layer. It really is that easy to stack these and have as many pumpkins and melons in this farm as you want. As I said in my rate test I did, each one of these structures had 112 pumpkins or melons in them. And it really didn't take that long to make any one of them. And it's kind of fun too. But let me know in the comment section down below which farm you prefer, which one you've used in your world, or which one you plan on using in your next build. I'm really curious to see which one people prefer. As for me, I like them both. They both have their uses and they both have their advantages, all depending on what it is you're trying to do. But with that, that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it's going to help you in your world. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. But until then, this is Texas BK. Be good to each other. Bye.